What's up, my peoples? How you guys doing? This is Edgar OtraVez with another episode of the Floro Podcast. My cohort for today is Not-My-Cousin Dan. In this particular episode, we're doing a podcast about podcasts. Yeah, it's meta, I know. But I'm hoping that maybe we shine the light on some podcasts that you may not be aware of. Not-My-Cousin Dan brought some really good podcasts up. I have not heard of some of these. I started looking at some of their content and I've subscribed already. I hope you guys agree and also follow some of these other podcasts as well. As always, you want to support the podcast, get yourself a throw pillow over at shop.theflowrollpodcast.com. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and follow us on The Floro on Instagram. Now here's the show. Yeah, and then I'm like the next one, and it's like, no, this one's the best one. This one's the best one. But yeah. So anyway,
and everybody who's listening is like, I'm waiting for the best one.
yeah, no, or like, what's wrong with these idiots?
Right. Yeah.
All right. So welcome to another episode of the Floro Podcast. This is Edgar OtraVez with Not-My-Cousin Dan, the very powerful, very funny Not-My-Cousin Dan.
You going all Rogan?
Yes. Oh yeah, he's
powerful.
Well, and today's podcast, it's funny that you bring up Rogan because today's podcast is about podcasts, our favorite podcasts.
We're doing a podcast about podcasts.
We're getting meta. We're getting very meta here. So anyway, so you wanna? I got several. I didn't really kind of number them as in terms of like which one's my favorite or anything like that.
Yeah, I let's just flow with it, man, because it's just like anything. You can't say this is my favorite. You know what I mean? It's
because
they're all good.
Yeah, you know? Because the Flow Roll is our favorite.
The Flow Roll is my favorite podcast.
Yes.
I've rated it at least 15 times.
Why, thank you, Dan. We really do need those ratings right now. So let me start. My first one on my list, and again, this is not like my favorite or my least favorite. It's just on my list of my favorites. And hot boxing with Mike Tyson and Evan Britton. He's like, this show is super good. It's really good at times, and then there's times where it just kind of just misses for me, you know. But
sure, I mean any podcast is going to be like that.
Yeah, but it's
look
like
at ours.
Well, ours is pretty steady, right? I mean, it's like
like
it's
they're all the hit factory.
Yeah,
it's the hit factory in here.
It just is. It's just like, you know, sometimes it's just not as much of as a hit, but it's still a hit. It's just maybe number 2 instead of number 1, right? No, but like with Mike Tyson's hotboxing, it's like there are episodes it's like, oh man, this one sucked a little bit, you know. But that Evan character, he recently got on YouTube and talked about how he might be getting pushed out or something out of the show, which is kind of sad.
That's weird.
Yeah, if you listen to him, if you listen to the show at all, like he's not the best. He doesn't seem he kind of lets Mike Tyson shine. He doesn't get in the way of Mike Tyson kind of dropping.
Well, most people who are smart don't get in the way of Mike Tyson.
You absolutely want.
You absolutely kind of let him do what he's going to do.
Yeah, no, yeah, or just get the fuck out of the way, right? Like,
yeah, right.
Yeah, you don't want Mike Tyson in your way, or you don't want to get in the way of Mike Tyson. So Evan seems to kind of just let him talk, and I don't think he adds much to the podcast, and maybe that's what's happening. Like maybe they're like, well, let's get somebody in here.
Huh. Well, you know what though? Sometimes I can kind of tell when I listen to certain podcasts. There's somebody there who doesn't necessarily add much to it, but they're an anchor.
Yeah.
And like, no, they may not be adding much in the way of content, but you take that person away, and then all of a sudden the other people are just kind of talking to a wall.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I can't think of any good examples now, but I mean, maybe that's what he actually adds. Maybe his contribution is that he's just by him being there draws the best out of Tyson.
That's an interesting point. Because he like I said, he posted something on YouTube talking about what may be developing, and he doesn't know what's going to happen. And so I think it was kind of a bad move for him to do so, to kind of jump on
Yeah,
the.
that's
the-
sounds like a dumb thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't burning bridges. He was talking respectfully of everybody, but still, he shouldn't be doing that. And he said his words were like, the the business is getting in the way of him being on the show, kind of. I'm
Mm.
paraphrasing, but that's kind of what he said. And so, like, I'm like, oh, so you're not getting paid what you want, right? Uh, So, like, and he was talking, and then he said something to the effect of, oh, and they're, my mom or my dad or someone said to me I should never do anything for free. And I'm like, dude, you were doing that shit for free?
Yeah,
You're,
yeah.
you're working with Mike Tyson,
Yeah, and you know what? There's some wisdom to that. You know, um, you kind of have to. You learn this when you work freelance, and I learned this in a number of different roles that I've worked in. Is you kind of have to name your price.
Yeah.
And if the price that you name is zero, then zero is what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And like and plus again, what we're doing, we're starting, right? We're doing the
Yeah.
thing. We're
Yeah.
like, that's Mike Tyson. That fucking
Yeah.
guy. I mean, I know he's been up and down and broke and not broken.
But like, Mike Tyson does a podcast, people are going to listen,
Yeah. He's got
it's not,
money.
it's not something that you really have to promote too hard,
Yeah. So
you
like,
know?
I think I don't know what the financial situation is there with him, but he should have had that conversation about money
Yeah.
earlier, you know?
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I mean, who knows what the politicking is like. Right.
yeah.
But yeah, maybe it's a little bit late now to ask for a paycheck if you
Yeah.
haven't been getting one all along, but more power to him for asking for one. If
Yeah.
he's going to ask for one and they're not going to give it to him,
Well,
that's kind of sucks.
well, here's the thing too. Like you can renegotiate the terms of whatever agreement you have at any point, right? You
Mhm.
can you can always kind of come back to the table and say, hey, look, okay, let's reassess this. What, this is how much I think I'm worth now, because of
Right.
the contribution or the more or all the things I brought to this, etc. So I think it has to be about money. It has to be about money. It either has to be about
Yeah.
money, or they're just kind of trying to push him out because now Mike has brought something interesting to the table. People are listening, and
Yeah.
he is so, like, Mike Tyson is so fascinating on that podcast. I mean, there's the knowledge that he drops, the things that he knows, only Mike Tyson can know. Only a fighter can know. And someone,
I'm going to have to listen to this podcast because I haven't listened to it, but I would also imagine Mike Tyson is the kind of guy who says a lot of, you can't ever anticipate what he's going to say. Yes, he strikes me as that kind of guy where the whole time it's just like, what did he just say?
yeah, yeah. It's a lot of stuff, but it's not like in your face kind of stuff. He gets super metaphysical. Like, he's talking about like his soul and shit, and it's a super spiritual podcast. It's really kind of not what you would expect. It's not what you would expect from a fucking champion boxer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He is super introspective, really wise at this point in life, and to hear him speak on any subject is like really fascinating. Sometimes it's like, oh, dude, what?
Yeah.
Like you've gotten way too high for even me. Like, I'm like, sometimes I'll sit there and listen to this guy, and I'm getting a contact high from listening to this guy. Because I mean, they sit there. The reason it's called hotboxing is because he sits there and he fucking gets high. But
All right. Now I'm definitely going to listen to this podcast.
Oh, dude,
Hot boxing. Okay.
Hot boxing.
Yeah.
He's got some really good ones. The one that sticks out of my mind is the one with Sugar Ray Leonard, because he talks to Sugar Ray Leonard and he tells him like, oh, like, I was in juvie and you came in, like, you talked, like you showed me some stuff or whatever, I was in juvie and you inspired me to, to kind of do this shit. And so like, he always had like that kind of inclination, that kind of like these road signs telling him to go to boxing.
Yeah.
And Sugar Ray Leonard was one of those. And when he talks to Sugar Ray Leonard about Sugar Ray Leonard, like he tells him how important he was for him. It's really kind of, he's coming from a really humble place, and it's really fascinating, right? And you can see that he has so much love for Sugar Ray Leonard, and all you want to do is just listen to the guy talk,
Yeah.
So
well, that's also one of my favorite things about some podcasts, like this one you're talking about, or like WTF with Marin,
mm-hmm.
or sometimes every once in a while you'll get it listening to Rogan, where they'll have a guest on, and it's obvious that guest is like one of their idols.
Yeah.
And so there's something cool about listening to somebody who's basically super famous, who's like more human than human, basically,
mm-hmm.
gushing over one of their idols.
Yeah.
Right. It's humanizing, but it's also, it's like, it's humanizing in that way where it's like everybody has idols. Everybody always has an idol, somebody else that they're in the shadow of or looking up to, no matter how big they get,
Mm-hmm.
It's a cool moment when you get to hear that.
Yeah, dude, like it's funny. And this story kind of sucks a little bit, but it's like, when one time I was hanging out at the gym, right? And I was like, I don't know, 34, 33, maybe a little older, maybe a little younger at this point.
So like 25 years ago?
Something like that. And so I'm hanging out at the gym, right? And then in walks this kid, and he's got like the cauliflower ear, and he was there to kind of like pick up some boxing because I think he had a fight coming up or something. He was just training. And so he showed up at this boxing gym where I was hanging at. And this kid just eyeballs me the whole fucking time I'm there. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with this kid, right? So I don't pay attention to it much, but finally he comes up to me because I'm like talking to all these other guys, and these guys are like guys he knows, right? So he comes up and he says, you used to fight, right? And I'm like, yeah, I fought a long time ago, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, I think I know you. And I'm like, you do? And it's like, yeah, I was at this one fight where you knocked this guy out. And I'm like, oh, you were at that fight? And I was like, because I only knocked one guy out. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
And so then he's like, yeah, I was at that fight. And I'm like, are you serious? It's like, yeah, dude, you're the reason I wanted to become a fighter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I was like, really? He was like, yeah, dude, the way you knocked that guy out. And then the whole gym was cheering, and it was an obscene kind. It was kind of crazy because it was like the gym was packed. There was a lot of people there, and I was like the last fight or the second to last. I wasn't the last fight. I couldn't have been, but there was like I was like 10th or 8th in the night. In the night, like the whole school went there because we had like 10 guys fighting, right? Or 5 guys. I don't know how many. We had a lot of guys fighting. And so this guy said he was there cheering the whole team on all night, because we're in fight after fight after fight after fight. Everybody was winning. And then, my coach would come in and he's like, okay, this guy just, okay, that fight's over. And I'm like, oh yeah, what happened? He's like, oh, he won. I'm like, fuck. And it was like,
I better win then.
I better win, right? And then another guy come in and is like, yeah, okay, that fight's over. And I'm like, okay, well, what happened? And he's just like, he won. I'm like, fuck. So I was just getting like super.
Was this like the All Valley karate tournament?
It was kind of like
Cobra Kai.
It was kind of a little bit of that deal, but it was kickboxing, right? And so then I end up being the last fight for the team, right? I think there was like 15 fights. Who knows how many fights? But there are a lot of fights, right? And so I go out, I fight this guy. I hit him. I remember we hit him. I hit him with an uppercut and then a hook, and he was out. And then he didn't get up. The ref counted him out, and the stadium went bananas, right? Everybody's like, but there was a lot of people there, right? Because I was already kind of like one of the last, like, or at least in the middle, someplace, towards the back end of the night. So everybody who was going to show up has shown up, right? So that's part one. The other part is like, I don't know why, but there was a lot of people at this particular event, and that kid had to have been, I don't know, 5, 10 years old. Who knows when that happened, right?
Yeah.
Because then, years later, he runs into the guy that inspired him.
That's an awesome story.
It's crazy. But then hold on. There's more to the story.
But then he's like, but now you suck.
No, but basically, what happens was it's like, oh, cool. All right. Oh, dude, man, that night was amazing, man. I was just a little kid. I was taking like these, the kid classes at that school, and blah, blah. It's like, oh man, that was awesome. And it's like, okay, so like, what'd you do? Did you go pro? Did you like, I'm like, no, I became a web developer. And he was like, what? Yeah, man. Like, no. And so like the guy was like, so like, did you become a champion? Did you did you do this? Did you do? No, I became a fucking cube jockey. Yeah. And he's like,
and chances are you will too.
Like, I didn't want to do that to him.
Oh, you can't. Nah,
but he was
on people, man.
No, that dude was not going to ever become that either. Cause he was on that path, bro. Like his face had already shown. He's got the broken nose and the cauliflower ear, and he was ripped. He was fucking ripped. And I'm like, damn, like, you standing here inspires me, like, fuck, like, because like the kid was in shape. He was a fighter,
Yeah.
And he had like he had like a mullet, he was fucking wacky, and
like Jean-Claude Van Damme's older brother in Bloodsport,
something like that, bro. Right? It's just like, yeah. Like, I know you're talking about the fucking the
who was an actual, that dude was an actual kickboxing champion, right?
Oh, you're thinking of Kickboxer.
Or Kickboxer, yeah. Kickboxer and Bloodsport are kind of the same movie.
That guy, Dennis Alexio.
Yeah.
He, I think, ended up retiring later, because I'm not sure. I shouldn't say that because I don't know what happened to him. But he broke his shin at a kickboxing fight.
That's hardcore, man.
His fucking shit just went butter. Oh. And like, it looked like rubber, and then it just flapped around and shit. And and then he kicked him, and I guess he didn't realize it, or just kind of like kept going with it. So he went back, like he kicked it. He kicked the chin. He saw the check. He brought the leg back to kind of like get his balance. And they just,
God, can you imagine how much it would hurt to try to stand on that?
Dude, it must have fucking hurt like a motherfucker. And not only that, but it's super dangerous, because I believe if the skin rips through, if the bone rips through the skin, you lose the leg.
Probably, I don't know anything about it. I've also heard that those bones, they're tough. Your shin bones are tough, but that also makes them fairly brittle, so that when they break, especially if it's a bad like compound break, the chances of you getting like little pieces, little shards that get into your bloodstream and find their way to your heart and kill you are pretty high.
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
It's just things that I've heard. Who knows how true they are? We do live in the age of misinformation, you know?
Yeah, we do, right? Oh, hopefully.
But yeah, Dennis Alexio was kind of a badass.
Yeah.
He was like the king of kickboxing for a long time. Too.
Yeah, he was badass. But oh well. I don't know what happened to him. I wonder what happened to him. I should look him up to see what's he up to. But give me one of yours. Yeah. Give me one of yours, your favorite.
Okay, so we talked about hot boxing with Mike Tyson. I'm gonna go the exact opposite direction. I'm gonna go deep down into nerdland.
Let's go.
And this is a really popular podcast. I don't know that any of the podcasts that I'm going to talk about are things that are going to be like new niche discoveries for anybody. But there's a podcast I listen to, and this is just going to reveal how nerdy I am if it wasn't already painfully obvious. But I've been listening to it for years. The Adventure Zone.
I've never heard of this.
I'm almost surprised, but not really. The Adventure Zone is a real play Dungeons and Dragons podcast. Yeah.
Wow.
But it's put out by I was going to say the McElroy brothers, but it's really the McElroy family now. But the McElroys are super famous. I mean, they're like kings of the content creator universe. Huh. They do a ton of different podcasts. They started out with Polygon magazine, like they bought Polygon magazine and became the publishers of that. When they were they're still fairly young now, but when they were very young, like fresh out of college, and they started doing Polygon and then doing other. I hope it's Polygon. If it's not Polygon, I sound like an idiot. But but they've done so many different things. They've done a ton of different podcasts. One of the podcasts is called My Brother, and Me, and it's just so you've got three brothers: Justin McElroy, Griffin McElroy, and Travis McElroy. Griffin is arguably kind of the most famous one. And they would do these video game content with Polygon. They started, it's one of my favorite YouTube channels called Monster Factory. And what they do is they play video games where you have like the character creator, where like you like Skyrim, where like you can basically custom create your character to look almost like anything almost that you possibly could imagine, you know? And so they'll play all these games, and while they're creating their characters, they'll go out of their way to make like the most horrifying looking mistake of a character, you know, and then they'll go and they'll play the game for a couple hours. Right. And like the episodes of Monster Factory are maybe 20 minutes to half an hour long, but it's just snippets of them going through the game and spending an inordinate amount of time irritating other people in like a multiplayer universe or so. Like one of the best episodes of it that they do is in Second Life.
I'm gonna have to check this out.
So the Adventure Zone, yeah, anybody, you have to check out Monster Factory on YouTube because it's damn fine entertainment. So they started a podcast that is actually a spin-off, if I remember correctly, spun off from their other podcast, My Brother and Me, where they invited their dad, Clint McElroy, to join them in a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. And it was originally just supposed to be like this one episode that they did of My Brother and Me. And the episode was so popular that they were like, well, let's just do instead of just like one game, let's do like a whole campaign.
Wow.
And so if you're not familiar with Dungeons and Dragons, a campaign normally is, a long form. You play the same characters multiple times over a long period of time, and your character levels up and you go through all these different adventures within the same universe, within the same setting, right? And so they've already been through, I think they're on their 5th one now. But I mean, it's the podcast goes back years and years. I've been listening to it for years and listened to them go through all these different campaigns and different characters and stuff. And when I was a teenager, I loved Dungeons and Dragons. I played Dungeons and Dragons all the time. And so like I haven't played much since like when I was in college, probably like freshman year and sophomore year of college, I played, and then I got too cool for it. But this podcast I got into so deep that some friends and I actually started our own D&D adventure. So we're getting back into it.
Oh, wow. Well, that's cool. I like the idea of them going around trolling people with like the weirdest characters in the video games. I'm not sure. We're talking about tabletop Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, dice and stuff like that.
I'll listen to it, but I don't know if that's my.
It's not going to be everybody's bag. That's for sure. But I think what makes it interesting to listen to is their brothers and their father. Their family, and so you get an interesting dynamic just because of that.
Okay,
but they're like genuinely nice people. You get the sense that they're genuinely good human beings, and that's worth listening to for that. You don't get a lot of that these days. People generally seem to have an edge about them.
Yeah.
They're just nice and they're playful, and sometimes they're a little roasty towards each other, but it's never like mean spirited.
Yeah.
And so that's fun. But it's fun to listen to somebody else's adventure, I guess. It's one of the reasons I listen to podcasts, especially conversational podcasts like what we've been doing, where it's just us having conversations basically. It's almost a little bit voyeuristic. Like you get into a podcast or like you listen to WTF with Marin, or Fresh Air on NPR. Fresh Air with Terry Gross is kind of similar, where it's an interview format, but it really comes across just more as a conversation. And it feels sort of like you're part of that conversation. Like, no, you're not contributing to it, but you're sitting in on it. And, there's something a little voyeuristic about it, maybe. I don't know.
I think what it is what we're doing. It's kind of reminiscent of the campfire stories,
Sure.
It's basically we're all sitting around and we're listening to somebody tell us a story, right?
Yep.
And I have a couple of podcasts that I can kind of go from here in terms of segue, because I can't remember there was one, now that you're talking about storytelling and just kind of like the voyeurism of podcasting. I can't remember the name of the podcast now, but there was a storytelling podcast. And it
might be one of the ones that I'm going to bring up.
This one they stopped doing, so I don't know if it is, because they stopped doing it. I think it was called like the Storytelling Podcast or something. It was something very generic, but anyway, they would go town to town and pick up people, and people would perform their stories in front of a crowd, and they would tell these stories, and some of them were hilarious, some of them were really sad, but like they were so compelling, right? But since we're on I can't remember the name of the podcast. That's not the podcast. So
you're talking about The Moth?
No, it wasn't The Moth. But I think I actually listened to that one, and I like that one. The one that I'm going to bring up for my next one is Snap Judgment presents Spooked. Now, Spooked is similar to what you're talking about, where you're just kind of listening to people tell a story or interaction or conversation or whatever. But someone calls in to spook They leave them. I don't know if they record it pre-hand or how they do it, but they tell a story, and they tell the story of them having a supernatural experience. So that's the twist on what we're talking about here. And it's awesome. Like there are moments where I have like my skin, like the hair on my neck just perks right up. I'm just like, like there's been some really interesting stories out of Spooked. I really enjoy it. It's the host is Glenn Washington, and it's interesting because he opens the podcast and he closes the podcast. He does the intro and outro, but he doesn't interact with the person telling the story. He just lets them go, and then they tell the story, and he throws music underneath, right? And you listen to the story, and they're usually about, I don't know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. So they're nice little bits. And I was listening to them the whole time during Halloween, because he releases them in like seasons. And so like every Halloween, I just fire it up and just plow through a whole season of Spooked. Yeah.
That sounds pretty good. That sounds like something I would get into.
I dig the scary stuff, man. I really do. I would love to do like a scary podcast, but I'm not how I don't know how I would create more content. You know?
Yeah, I don't know a lot of scary stories. I don't know that a lot of real like supernatural scary stuff has happened to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like scary stuff has happened to me, but more in like the existential dread sort of way. You know, more in like nobody wants to hear about that because it's just going to make them anxious. You know? Nobody wants to hear about your struggles.
Yeah. Yeah. No, people listen to the podcast to escape, you know, not to get grounded and more worried.
Oh, I don't know if I want to derail the podcast, but I do have a story about when like I did get really like my doctor scared the shit out of me once.
All right, let's hear it. What's going on?
So this is one of the scarier things that ever happened to me, and it ended up being like ridiculous, right? But I was having some real discomfort, like in my like stomach, you know, stomach and like up behind my breastbone, and it got to the point where it was like, I thought it was indigestion or acid reflux or something. So I kept taking antacids and it wasn't helping. So I finally went to the doctor, and my doctor was like, okay, well, based on the fact that, you know, you're basically morbidly obese and based on some other stuff, I want you to go get an ultrasound. For like, not like for a baby,
like you're having a baby,
you're having a meatloaf, you know, no,
it's a poop baby.
And no, like I want to have your liver and your pancreas and your gallbladder ultrasounded, you know. And he was like, because, you know, there's a small chance that this could be either pancreatic cancer or like gallbladder cancer, you know?
Oh, fuck.
And he was responsible at that point in that, like, it's a small chance, but, you know, considering whatever, you know, you're doing isn't helping, you know, I want to rule it out. Okay, fine. So I go and I get the ultrasound done, and the doctor calls me and was like, I want you to come into the office, which is never good, right? Mm-hmm. If they're not going to tell you over the phone, that's never a good sign. And so I go into the office and he's like, you know what? We got to, based on the ultrasound results, we got to send you in and get, you know, all sorts of blood work done. I'm not making this up, Edgar. I'm not trying to be dramatic.
Uh-huh.
He told me, based on what I'm seeing on the ultrasound, I want you to seriously consider getting your affairs in order.
What?
I'm not making this up.
When did he say this?
In the office when I went to.
No, but I mean, like how long ago?
Oh, this was years ago.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
And he's like, I want you to consider getting your affairs in order because what I'm seeing on the ultrasound isn't good.
Oh, fuck. So,
You know, I'm seeing things that make me think that, you know, you've got basically liver cancer.
fuck.
You know? And I don't know anything about anything. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So let's go get those blood tests. And the thing about the American medical system is, despite all of the talk about how wonderful private insurance is and how we have access to the best medical care in the country, there isn't much of a sense of urgency. So I went to get the blood test, and I had to have a blood test. I had to have a couple of other imaging tests. I had to have like a couple of MRIs, and then I don't remember what it was called, but I had to do this test where I basically sit down and eat radioactive eggs. And then they have a machine that basically measures like sits and like watches how fast the food is moving through your digestive system, you know.
What?
So like I spent like a day or about 2 days getting all of these different tests done and getting the blood work done. And I'm sitting there thinking I'm fucking dying because my doctor told me to get my affairs in order, you know. And it took fucking weeks for the results to come back.
Like you should have died already.
In the meantime, like so like this was just before Christmas is when this is all going down. My grandmother dies. My grandmother dies on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's comes and goes, and I still haven't heard anything from anybody about these test results. And so like weeks go by and I'm sitting there thinking I'm dying, like consulting about getting a will, you know, all this shit. Like I purged all of the alcohol in my house because it was like, alcohol could kill you. So don't drink any alcohol, you know? So I gave away probably thousands of dollars worth of alcohol. And then finally, like I get fed up and I call my doctor and I'm like, doctor, it's been weeks. You told me I was dying, basically. I haven't heard anything. What can you tell me? And he says, yeah, so we got all the blood work back and all the other tests, and the ultrasound operator must have been having a bad day because everything's fine.
Meanwhile, you're like not drinking, you're getting rid of all your shit, you're fucking
living in mortal fear, like I'm in mortal peril.
Making up your will. Telling people I love you.
Having those discussions, those like, listen, you know, I don't want any like having to sit down and actually think about it and have I don't want any special measures conversation. Yeah. Like if I go, no resuscitation, don't put me on a ventilator, you know, kind of discussion.
Yeah.
Having to have those real discussions with people. And then, the ultrasound operator must have been having a bad day.
Like you go back and you're like calling.
And then what's more is like, okay, so then what the fuck is wrong with me? Well, I don't know. Do you ever like, is there anything? It turned out he basically told me stop eating Indian food.
I'm telling you, bro, Indian food, man, that will give you the shits.
And the funny thing is it worked because like there was an Indian restaurant right near my office where I was working at the time that I would go to like 3 times a week because I really liked it. I like Indian food. I don't know. I like my food spicy. What can I say? You know, and they would make some really beautiful spicy Bengal Bharta there that I loved. But that's what it shook out to was like, is there anything? and the whole time I'm like, it seems like these are questions you should have maybe asked me before telling me you think I was dying.
Yeah.
You know, but I stopped going to the Indian restaurant 3 days a week and I got better. You know,
that is,
But I mean, stuff like that. That's why I just don't go to doctors anymore. You know, it's almost to the point now where it's like, I would rather find out that I'm dying the moment that I'm on my deathbed, you know, because this stuff is ridiculous.
Oh, dude, that is
like, I wish I was exaggerating this story. I wish I was making it up.
I can only imagine, bro. You're like going to like Billy in second grade. I'm sorry that I picked on you, man. I know we haven't talked that far. I know we haven't talked in years, but I want to settle this before we.
I didn't do any of that. I kept it fairly close to the vest, you know. But I did. I was like some of my very close friends. I was like, listen, I basically can't drink now or ever again, or it might kill me. So do you and it's like, especially at that time, not so much anymore. I don't drink much anymore. But at the time I was big into whiskey. Not like alcoholism. Like, I enjoyed scotch. I enjoyed, you know, expensive whiskeys. And like I'm not kidding. I probably gave away like thousands of dollars worth of booze because I thought it would kill me.
Well, you know that I don't drink because, first off, I'm a lightweight, as you have been witness to. And second, it's
I?
Oh, dude.
I don't ever remember seeing you drink ever.
You've been with me a couple of times where I've done some silly shit.
But I must have been more silly because I just don't remember it.
There's that one time we went to the Russian tea room.
Oh yeah, okay, with the horseradish vodka.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I remember.
Yeah, and then I ended like you were like holding your own, and my dumb ass was trying to keep up with you and the other guy.
Oh, shit, at that time of my life, I probably had more alcohol than blood in me at any given time of the day.
Dude, I don't know why I do that. You're one of the other people that I've done that with, where I'm like, oh, I can hang, you know, and I'm like trying to drink, and I'm like, fuck this. And by the time I realize, fuck this, it's too late. It's already too late.
Yeah, it's way too late because it's time release, man. There's stuff that hasn't hit you yet.
Oh, dude, speaking of time release, on the way home, I was on the bus. You jumped on a taxi and ended up rolling around in the back seat.
Yeah.
You told me the taxi took off and you ended up like rolling around on the floor in the back seat of the taxi. But then like my ass jumped on a bus, right? Because I didn't live too far from downtown. So I jump on a bus and that bus was gonna take me all the way home. So I jump on this bus and I make it to as far as like, I don't know, just outside the downtown area, like UIC. And I'm like, oh no, the stopping and going.
Oh yeah.
Had made me fucking super nauseous and I couldn't hold it anymore.
Dude, there is nothing. Oh, you didn't bomb on the bus, did you?
I was this close, bro. I was dinging that bell. And you know how like you can't just keep dinging it anymore. I was just like, I kept dinging. I'm like, let me off. And so the dude like stopped right at the corner like he's supposed to. And I jumped off. And as soon as the doors opened, it just spewed out. And all I could do was like kind of walk away from it as I jumped off the bus. You know, like there was like this rainbow of vomit.
Oh wow! I bet it was beautiful.
It was all kinds of colors, and then I went right under it and jumped off like the bus.
Oh wow! Oh, so it landed on you?
No, not a speck.
Oh wow, this sounds pretty acrobatic.
It was, but then like I ended up laying on the bus bench like a bum and called my wife to come and pick me up. I just laid on there and I was like, "Go get me."
Oh, that is awesome. Yeah, there's not much worse than being like spins drunk on a bus or on an L train or even on the Metro train. Oh, it's brutal.
Oh, but there's also that face that your wife gives you, or your significant other, and it's just like, why are you doing this shit? You're not a young boy.
You're not a child.
Yeah. I'm like, just take me home. I want to go home.
Yeah. Like all you can do is sit there and be like, If you were anywhere close to rational, it would just be like, I made an error. I am well aware of the error.
Uh-huh.
You don't need to explain the error to me. Just take me home and let me wallow in my shame.
Yeah.
please.
Yeah. Oh,
You know?
dude. That was a horrible night, dude. There was
That was a work night too. That was like a Tuesday. Man, the sad thing is thinking about it, like at that point in my life, that was not a rare occurrence for me at all. I enjoyed the drink
Yeah, no, I
a
didn't.
lot.
I hated it. I fucking hated it. I was like, and before I knew it, I was like, oh shit, I'm at where I don't want to be, am I? This is not what I want to do. Oh no, I am gonna be so fucked up tomorrow. You know, like I'm already like when I can't stand and I'm like tripping over my words more than usual.
Yeah.
I realize, oh fuck, I fucked up, and tomorrow's gonna suck.
Yeah.
Maybe even tonight.
Isn't it always the way? The point at which you figure out you fucked up, it's way too late. It's way too late even for like corrective action.
Yep.
It's just it's the moment you realize you've made a mistake, the only thing you can do is ride it the rest of the way out.
Just keep moving forward.
You can't run away. You can't turn around. You can't jump off to the side. No,
Nope.
You just got to keep plowing ahead.
Just keep
and
doing
let it keep getting worse because it's too late.
Dude, my wife, like she said she hated that was one of the worst nights because I ended up like I got home and I went straight to the bed and just laid in the bed.
Uh-huh.
And she said that when she went in there, that I had stunk up the room so bad with alcohol because I was just pissing. My skin was just pissing alcohol, right?
Yeah, you got the gin sweats.
Yeah, so it's just coming out of me. And she said that the room smelled so much like alcohol, she didn't want to sleep there that night. And I just kept going. It was just me from the room to the toilet, to the room, to the toilet all night. I just kept fucking throwing up. And it was
brutal.
It was brutal, bro. It was brutal because you were just
not to add insult to injury or anything, but I didn't throw up at all. I just went home. I got home. I watched some stuff on TV.
Yeah, you just rolled around on the taxi. That's all that happened to you.
I slipped getting into the taxi.
How do you
that shit happened?
How do you slip? There's a giant fucking couch in the back seat of a taxi. How do you slip? You should just like. How do you end up on the floor?
When you're drunk, your feet don't work.
Yeah. Oh, dude, and I mean, I'm not you. I'm not like any other person. I cannot drink. I cannot drink.
And it's good that you get that. You know.
Oh, I'm aware of it.
It took me I shouldn't drink. I may be able to put a lot of it down, but you know, I behave like a moron, you know. That's when people say, you know, you can't hold your drink. Yeah. It means for some people that means throwing up. For some people that means acting the fool.
Yeah.
But anyway, you know, that's my version of a scary story, right? Like
throwing up.
No. There's like I don't have too many spooky things that have happened to me to talk about, but I have these existential dread stories where it's like your doctor telling you, "Hey, you're probably, you know, good as dead." So, you know.
Well, I mean, the other thing too is like fucking doctors, man. I mean, everything is about it's just because you're fat. You know, it's just like motherfucker. Like I broke my arm. It's not because I'm fat, you know. Like that's not.
Yeah, but most of the time, being fat is like smoking, in that it makes everything worse. Like being fat may not be why X, Y, or Z is a problem, but X, Y, or Z is a million times worse because you're fat. You know. But anyway, so all right, you talked about Spooked. Are you done on Spooked?
Yes. Your turn.
Okay, so Spooked. I'm writing it down so that I can go listen to it because it sounds right up my alley. Sort of along the same lines, but it's a little spooky, but it's fiction. It's science fiction. Podcast called Dust. And it's they do it by seasons, so like 10 or 11 or 12 episodes per season, but every season is like a new it's like a whole new world, a whole new kind of universe, and kind of like, have you ever watched American Horror Story?
Yes.
So it's sort of an anthology series, right? Where it's different characters every time, and it's a different story every time, but it's the same cast or similar cast members, and it's the same group of people producing it,
Mm-hmm.
and so they've done a lot of really interesting things. The most recent arc is really, really good. It's called Chrysalis, and it's basically about an AI that survives like a genocidal attack on humanity by aliens, basically, and survives. And then over the course of they never necessarily make it very clear how long, but over the course of a long number of years, uses all of the resources that are left on Earth to move out into interstellar space and hunt down the people that killed off humanity.
That is awesome.
And it's a really, really well done story arc. They've done, but that's just the most recent season. They've done these other seasons where, like, the season 2 was called Flight, and it was every episode was from a different person's perspective on the same flight.
Mm-hmm.
And that one was pretty solid too. And then season 1 was called Horizons, and it's an anthology of, like, it's episode to episode. It was very episodic. It wasn't like one unifying story across the whole season per se, but it was just individual short science fiction stories, and that was it's all good. So it's called Dust, produced by an outfit called what is it, Gunpowder and Sky? Yeah, Gunpowder and Sky. Well worth looking into if you're into they're like speculative fiction, right? Sci-fi has a lot of different kind of subgenres. Speculative fiction is kind of the stuff that happens within the realm of kind of hard science, what could be possible type stuff.
Dude, that sounds
really, really solid.
That sounds fascinating, bro. The Chrysalis story.
Yeah, you gotta.
Awesome. It's a revenge story,
and the episodes, like, they're 15 to 20-minute episodes. You can plow through the entire season if you want in an afternoon.
Right? I just like the idea of the child revenge story.
Yeah,
not being an actual human being, but being a robot.
Right.
It's so interesting.
It's and it's really, really well done. It's very good.
I am checking that one out.
And they shift perspective too. So like from episode to episode, it shifts perspective from the perspective of the AI that survived to the perspective of, like, the aliens as this stuff is happening, and it's really interesting because part of it is the amount of time between when Earth was attacked. Like, again, I mean, they do make it clear at some point, but I mean, it's like hundreds of years have passed. And so nobody even knows it happened. And so everybody that's getting attacked is like, who is this mystery villain that's coming to kill us? And why are they coming to kill us?
Interesting. Huh. Interesting.
In a way, I can't remember what it was called now, but there was like it was a sci-fi story that started off as a message board. Maybe somebody who's listening will remember what it's called. It started off on a message board where somebody just came up with the seed of this idea, And then it turned into this whole message board of people just adding to it and basically like cooperatively writing this whole story. And the basis of the story was that human beings are one of the reasons why we don't have like interstellar contact is because physically we are in this story. It turns out that physically no one in the galaxy ever expects that people who live on a class 12 planet, which is how Earth is categorized, where you have high atmospheric pressure and high gravity because the planet has a lot of mass. No intelligent life could ever survive on a planet like that. They call them hell worlds or something. And so like when humans do accidentally end up making it into outer space, they are so much like stronger and more powerful and resilient than any of the other races that they come against. And like there's another race that their whole existence is predicated upon hunting and eating everyone that they come across.
Wow.
And so the whole galaxy is afraid of those people, and they come across a human, and the human just kind of like tears them to pieces. And so like there's a whole, I wish I could remember the name of it because I really dove deep into it. This is the whole idea of this is a story that's being written by so many different people and going in so many different directions was pretty cool. But the AI story in Dust reminded me a lot of that.
I dig that. I dig that a lot. That's awesome. So, I mean, since this is the other podcast that I was gonna go into, and because it's nerdy, and the name of the podcast is also pretty geeky. It's called Geek History Lessons.
Ooh,
yeah,
sounds up my alley. Geek history.
Yeah. So the Geek History Lessons podcast is both on your podcast, and you can also find it on YouTube. And it's hosted by Jason Inman and Ashley Robinson. Now, they are great for like knowing comic books and some pop culture stuff. So they'll do, but mostly comic books. So they have breakdowns and kind of, they're almost like cliff notes for almost any kind of story arc or character you want to kind of know about. They've been great. I think they're great for the person that wants to know everything they want to know about, for example, Wonder Woman, right? Let's say you want to know everything about Wonder Woman. They have episodes on Wonder Woman, and they will tell you all the story arcs, break down all the information, all the artists that used to write, all the storytellers that used to write for them, all the artists that used to draw her, for example, all those things. And then like sometimes if the character is a big character with lots of story, she came in to tell me that because we did jujitsu before the podcast. So I was rolling with her, or no, she was rolling with her brother, and her brother and her bumped heads, and now she's telling me that her lip still feels weird. So, yeah.
At least they're not making popcorn.
No, they're not. Thank God, right? So anyway, the Geek History Lesson podcast, those two, they're great too. I think they're a married couple. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if they really kind of tell you that, but Jason Inman and Ashley Robinson, they're great. They're hilarious. And they used to do episode breakdowns for like The Flash, for example.
Okay.
And they stopped doing it. And sometimes they kind of poo-poo something a little too much. They're like, oh, well, this is wrong with it, and they shouldn't have done that, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, it's just a TV show. Like,
yeah, sure. Like, yeah. I get that way too, though. And I have to catch myself a lot where, It's like, dude, it's science fiction. The whole point of science fiction is that they're breaking the rules.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Right. And so they sometimes do that. And so I think for that reason, they kind of stopped doing it. And I'm happier for it too, to tell you honestly, because I like it better when they just talk about comic books and like history of comic books and stuff like that. Because they've had some super deep cuts. Like they'll go deep on like the different versions of Superman, Batman, X-Men. They do breakdowns on like fucking like the different characters of the X-Men, tell you all the different story arcs for Spider-Man. And
That's awesome.
I love them. And it's weird because I don't listen to them all the time, but whenever a new movie comes out, I go super deep right into them, man.
Yep.
I hit every episode I need to know for that show or for that movie that's coming out, because that's what, you know what? I should look them up for the WandaVision now that I think about it.
Oh, have you been watching that?
Yes, I love that show.
Oh, I'm not crazy about it.
Well, this is what I did, not to segue too far from what we're talking about, but before me and the family started watching that show, I made everybody watch I Love Lucy, whatchamacallit, Bewitched, the Brady Bunch, Family Ties, and they already and Family Matters.
You gave them a lot of homework.
Yeah, we did it over a few days. So like we watched a couple episodes here and there, and they really liked I Love Lucy, because I gave them the pilot episode, and then we went to the candy episode. Where, you know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, where she's eating the chocolates because she can't keep up with the assembly line. Yeah.
That episode holds up.
Oh, there's so much of I Love Lucy that holds up. You know, yeah, conceptually, there's some stuff in there that's dated. But in terms of construction, in terms of how to write a comedy, you know, how to write a story and stage it and all that. I mean, I Love Lucy is like the Beatles, but for TV shows, you know, it's classic. And
I agree.
It's just, there's a reason why it's still an iconic American thing. And even kids know what I Love Lucy is, because it is, keep making comparisons here, but it's like Merry Melodies and Looney Tunes, right? A well done story. Funny is funny is funny. Yeah. It doesn't matter when it was made. If it's funny, it's funny, you know?
Well, like we watched Bewitched, and I'm glad we did, because I knew there was going to be a play on Bewitched just because it's black and white and she's got kind of magical powers. So like, I wasn't sure if they were going to do a play on Bewitched, but I figured I should watch it anyway. And so we went and watched it. And so the kids got familiar with that intro where it's all cartoons and stuff. And she flies around on the broom and stuff. Well, they did the same thing on WandaVision.
Yeah.
Except with, you know, Vision and Wanda. And my kids are like, hey, that's just like Wanda. And I'm like, I'm so happy that I gave them that opportunity to kind of get to know those other shows so they can understand some of the references.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens in the next episode, because I think they're going in color now. And I think they're going to do Brady Bunch / Family Ties.
Yeah. I mean, I'll keep giving it a chance, but it just wasn't clicking for me.
You see, the problem with me is that I go and ruin everything for myself. So as the show comes on,
you're Googling it.
I'm Googling it. I'm watching every fucking nerd video breakdown. Man, I love doing that shit.
You big into Marvel? You know, you like the Marvel properties. Have you watched Legion?
I have not.
It was on FX.
Yeah, no.
You got to watch Legion.
Yeah, you mentioned
that's the prime example of I ruined that whole show for myself, because I didn't start watching it until until after it had already run. But I'm watching it, and the first two episodes are so well. The whole series is super mind bending, but the first two episodes are so off the wall that like I started Googling it just to try to make sense of what I had seen.
Uh-huh.
And that's all it took was like for like 3 seconds for me to ruin. It didn't ruin the series. I still went on and watched it and I loved it. And it's fantastic. It is one of the best made TV series, not just in the Marvel universe, but just like TV series of the last decades. It is a fantastic series, but like I blew the twist just by Googling it. So if you're going to watch Legion, don't Google it at all. Don't Google the Marvel character. Don't Google any of the characters' names. Don't Google the TV series because you will blow it for yourself.
That's hard for me to do. That's really, that's really, because like one of the things I did too in preparation for WandaVision was me and the kids read The House of M.
Okay.
Which is kind of a story they're playing off of, from my understanding, in WandaVision. And you can see the similarities. And the kids have seen the trailers. And as we were reading the book House of M, the kids were like, hey, is this like WandaVision? This is WandaVision, isn't it? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what WandaVision is really about. Maybe, Yeah. And so we read all the way through the House of M. And then while we were watching WandaVision, the kids are like, that's the House of M. It's just like in the House of M. And that's like, they are getting, I am such a fucking nerd, but like you just can't watch a TV show with me, as you could see. You have to be prepared. You have to do homework before you go watch this motherfucker.
Yep.
So the kids knew all the references for Bewitched. They understood all the references for fucking for I Love Lucy. We didn't do Dick Van Dyke, but whatever. There's only so much time. But they understood the House of M references, and the House of M references are going to pay back in tenfold, right? Because it's like we haven't even broken through the story yet, and so much that could still happen, and they're gonna. I already see it. I think they're gonna love it just because of some of the preparation that I've done with them. But
forced them to do.
I forced them to do. It's funny too because my son is like, I don't want to read this. I don't want to. No, don't. And then I start reading. Next thing you know, they're like, well, what's gonna happen next? And we get and I'm like, well, we have to stop, and then like we'll pick up the next thing. I was like, what do you guys want to read? I want to read The House of M. I want to.
Yeah.
Like, I thought you hated that. Well, now I got to know what happens. But anyway, so I did.
So you were talking about geek history lessons.
If you really like that kind of nerdy shit that I like, you are gonna love.
Yeah, it sounds like it's right up my alley.
They don't just do American pop culture either. They've done. There's an episode on Sailor Moon, for example.
Okay.
And the Ashley Robinson host person, she's super into Sailor Moon. And I listened to it. It was not for me. She got really geeky. And
kind of like I did on the Muddy Waters episode. Got way deep into
way geeky. And she was like talking about, I don't know, she lost me. I'm like, this is cool. But like, it was funny because I was working in the yard when I was listening to it, so I had it on the radio. Yeah. And my daughter was listening to it while I was out there. I was like, I'm gonna turn this off. It's just not working for me. And and my daughter was like, no, leave it on. Why are you gonna turn it off? And it's just like it's just like I'm listening. It's Sailor Moon. I'm like, oh fuck. All right.
So now you're steeped in Sailor Moon lore.
I know way too much about Sailor Moon right now.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So anyway, what's your turn?
So my turn is a different kind of nerdy.
All right.
I'm going to history nerdy.
Oh.
And I'm gonna bring up the Dollop podcast.
Okay.
And that is 2 comedians, Dave Anthony and Gareth Reynolds. This is another podcast that I've literally been listening to this for years. It's been around since 2014. I've probably been listening to it since 2015. And it's the kind of thing where I basically never miss an episode. I always listen to this show, and it's the concept of it is pretty straightforward. Dave Anthony picks a story from American history, and he'll research it and put together kind of like is an essay, basically. Like he'll put together the story so that he can read it off.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it's some sort of either very, very silly event that happened in American history or something that's like truly shameful, basically, you know. And so he'll tell the story to Gareth Reynolds, and Gareth will just react to it as he's telling the story, because he doesn't know what the story is going to be.
Uh-huh.
You know, he hasn't been given any notes to prepare or anything. He just reacts, and he's very quick, and his reactions are like he improvs a lot, and he's so fast on the draw and funny, and they're both funny, but the reactions are what makes the podcast fantastic. And also like hearing these stories about American history that you may or may not have already known. Like there were a lot of the stories that he goes over that I already kind of knew, but you get a little bit more depth. And you know, I'll be fair. They definitely have a bit of not so much revisionist history point of view, but they definitely have a left-leaning point of view.
Okay.
Now, granted, I also have a particularly left-leaning point of view, but so I mean, there's definitely a little bit of spin to the way that the stories are presented, but for the most part, no, he's just telling facts. He's just telling this happened. This is part of our quote unquote proud American heritage. This happened here. Americans did this.
Uh-huh.
And Gareth just reacts to it. You know, Dave tells the story, Gareth reacts to it, and it's a simple recipe, but it's golden every time. Every time.
I love that. It sounds good.
It's really good. You give it a listen. Now, all of the episodes are long. They're all an hour or more. You know, it's a long podcast, but you know, it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it, because you will learn about history. You will learn about things that happened in American history. And you'll laugh your ass off while you're doing it.
That's awesome. You see, that's what school should be like. Like the class should be led by a fucking comedian. Like, you know what I'm saying? How much more algebra would you have learned if algebra was taught by a comedian? You know? Like
probably not much, I'll be honest. Probably not much more, because I was dead set against it. But you know, even if it had been delivered in an entertaining way, I don't think I would have picked up more of it.
If Kevin Hart was teaching you algebra, you wouldn't learn algebra?
I don't know how well Kevin Hart knows algebra.
I bet he knows it really well, because that motherfucker is rich. He knows his algebra really well, because that fucker is rich. You know? But like imagine that. I mean, imagine a class like that, dude. I remember my favorite classes were when the teacher was not only human, but relatable and funny
and entertaining
entertaining.
And presented the material from a standpoint where you could tell they actually cared about it.
Yeah. Like my English teacher was hilarious in high school. Mr. Bingham, I believe his name was. Hilarious man. And he could handle a crowd, because I mean, you have a class, half of them are Mexican. You're gonna get fucking heckled. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
and he handled the hecklers. He handled them, and he was. And I'm like, and looking back on it, man, I'm like, fuck, man, that guy probably could have done fucking comedy on stage. You know, because he was entertaining. I learned shit too. Like I was excited, not as excited as I could be about fucking English. You know,
Yeah.
I had an algebra teacher who was just, oh, dude. This guy, I don't know why he was teaching algebra, but it was not his calling, dude.
Or why? Yeah. There, you have a lot of teachers where you wonder why they're teaching, period.
Yeah.
You know, why, like you should not be teaching, you know, you got to cut algebra or math teachers in general a little bit of slack, because how do you make that exciting? You know,
well,
how do you do it?
I think it's not about how do you make it exciting. I think it's that particular mind, right? It's a very mathematical mind, right? And maybe it doesn't have the ability to kind of be funny. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it takes,
you never know.
It takes artistry to kind of string words together to make somebody give you the haha, right? It's not, a person that only knows one answer for one certain problem. He may not have that flexibility. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if those two things go together.
I think, I don't know if it's rare or not, but I mean, some very famous comedians, like Tom Lehrer, which is, I mean, that's older than any of us, but Tom Lehrer was very well known comedian. He would play like funny songs on the piano about current events. And he was actually very, very, very funny. But very skilled at actually playing the piano, and you know, he would write these songs and they were very funny, but he's a mathematics professor.
Jesus.
Like
that you see, and when you have all those pieces come together like that,
yeah,
that's when you have a genius.
Well, sure. Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's why someone like him is rare. You know, someone who could teach me math and make me laugh at the same time. That's probably a fucking genius.
Yeah.
You know, if anybody's listening and they're a principal at a school and you have a fucking teacher like this, who's not only a math person, but also like a fucking genius, you need to pay him more.
or her.
That's right. Or, you know, whatever you identify as, that pay that person more, because that is a rarity. But anyway,
yeah, I'm with you on that.
So what's next?
So it's yours.
It's my turn. Okay. So I have another scary podcast that I really, 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 really like. It's called Astonishing Legends.
Astonishing Legends.
Yes. With Scott Philbrook and Forrest Burgess. Now, these guys, they have quite the catalog of episodes. They have quite a few episodes, but they hit everything, dude. They talk about everything. And one of my favorite episodes, I have a few favorite episodes, but like one of my favorite episodes are the one with the black-eyed kids. Black-eyed kids scare the shit out of me. and just the thought of it is fucking weird. And they sometimes they can kind of figure out, what the thing is, and they can explain some of these things away, and maybe not.
So wait, no, there are like, this is a real thing.
Yeah.
Like kids who have black eyeballs, like the whites of their eyes are black.
Well, it's some kind of supernatural phenomenon, right? They don't know. I don't want to give too much away. You should probably listen to the episode, because I'm not going to do it justice in like 5 minutes or whatever. But like, basically there's these kids that show up on your doorstep or someplace, and they want to get in to wherever you're in. So there's a story where a person is in a car and they want to get in the car. There's a story where you're in your house and they want to get in your house. And something about letting them in, means something bad's going to happen to you. And there's several entities that are associated with this.
Man, you are on the spooky patrol tonight.
Dude, I listen to this kind of shit all the time. I love this shit. I would watch this shit, but I can't watch it because then it gets too real for me. And then I can't stop watching and it freaks me out. Like I haven't been able to watch a horror movie since I had kids because every fucking horror movie, something bad happens to a kid, you know? And I can't do that to myself. But it seems to be okay if I just listen to scary stories. I don't get as freaked out.
Uh-huh.
But
listening to scary stories it's a lot better than experiencing your own scary story.
Fuck yeah, it is.
You don't want to be going back to the White Room anytime soon.
No, dude, I don't want to do that shit. No. Fuck the White Room. But anyway, like,
if anybody is curious about the White Room, go back and which episode was that? Which episode was the White Room in?
We were talking about. Fuck, I can't remember what it was anymore. It was you and me, and we were talking. Oh, it was the aliens episode.
Go back and listen to the aliens episode if you want to hear about the White Room.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. For anybody's reference.
And a person who listens to the show.
The White Room is Edgar's scary place.
Yeah. But also it's I guess also somebody else that I know who listens to the show has a purple room, which is supposedly, I guess, pretty similar. But anyway, but yeah, so like he talks about these black-eyed kids, and I guess they're some kind of creature or alien or monster or something, and I guess they're trying to abduct people, and I think that's what.
This is just one episode, I assume.
This is
where they're talking about the black-eyed children.
The black-eyed.
I'm creepy. It's creepy just saying that.
Yes. I think there's like 2 or 3 episodes. Because they the first episode, they always kind of go into the lore of the particular creature experience thing, right? And then they go into, in the following episodes, they kind of go into more actual hardcore evidence, whether it's someone telling the story or other things like that. But then they try to eventually, they either do it in the second episode or they do it in the third episode where they actually kind of try to figure out what the thing was.
Ooh.
You know, and sometimes they have an answer and sometimes they don't, you know. But there was another really interesting episode. Another episode was about a fucking orb that I guess it's from space. And it did all kinds of weird things. And it was kind of like its own engine. And it like spun itself, but from the inside. So it felt like there was something inside. There was like another ball inside the orb, and the orb spun the other ball inside itself and would make it move around. And so certain actions or whatever would cause the orb to hop out of place and then roll around and shit and do weird things. And it almost became like a fucking pet at one point. But then
weird. It
was fucking weird. It gets weirder because eventually like the Men in Black show up, they take it and they never get it back. And when they do get it back, it's like it wasn't the same. Something happened. So that story was weird. But they got a bunch of good ones, man. Really good stories. Some of them are really kind of weird. Other ones are like, wow.
So how did you find these podcasts? Because this is what the second or third super spooky podcast. How did you come across these?
I just like looking for scary stories. So then like
you Google scary stories and you get the Astonishing Legends podcast. I'm curious.
I think, let me see. How did I even start? I've always been interested in the supernatural. And I don't know if you listened to that other episode, but there's an episode I did with Emily It was like the first episode we'd done together. And it was on, I can't remember the name of the show it was on this movie we saw. But basically there's these shadows that you see when you wake up in the middle of the night. And they're basically just kind of an experience that you're having because of the state your mind is still in. Your mind is.
Yeah. It's just like when I brought up even that book that you're reading now.
Yes.
Recursion.
Yeah.
By Blake Crouch, where it talks about like when you die, the pineal gland in your brain releases basically a flood of DMT.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what happens when you're dreaming too. That's where your dreams come from.
Yeah.
Your brain is literally releasing hallucinogens into your mind.
That's basically what's happening to these people in this documentary that we were watching. It was I can't remember the name of the fucking show, but
Night Terrors or Nightmares.
They're called Night Terrors, but
yeah,
the movie was called Nightmare.
Yeah,
and
what you're talking about is called Night Terrors. Yeah,
Night Terrors. Yes. Now these Night Terrors they happen because, like we're saying, you wake up, but your brain still thinks you're asleep.
Yeah.
So your eyes are open and you're having these experiences.
Right. You're awake, but the dream keeps going on. Basically turns into a hallucination.
Yeah. And what you see is, a black dude or a dude in black haunting you. So
it's the Candyman.
Fuck that shit. No, not Candyman. No, dude. No, but then like, I used to have those all the time. I shouldn't say.
Oh, wow.
But I had quite a few of those when I was a kid. 18, 19. I have a few of those. And I saw a few in black and I saw a few in red. But in one particular story, I shouldn't say story, but one of the events that I kind of went through, I woke up in the middle of the night and a black shadow was standing at the foot of my bed. And I was like, what the fuck? And so I'm staring at it and it was just standing there. And I'm like, okay. I say to myself, I'm dreaming. Like my eyes are getting light.
No good.
Yeah. So I rub my eyes. I shake my head. I try to snap out of it. And I look right where the shadow was standing and it is still fucking there. So then I start tripping fucking right the fuck out. Right. And I start screaming for mommy. I'm like, mom. And so then the thing kind of gets longer and then disappears into the dresser that was like towards the foot of my bed and goes into the dresser and out the wall and it's gone. But basically, I think it was like hunched over my bed. And when I started freaking out, it stood straight up and then disappeared into the wall.
Dude, that's
so then
that would freak me out for years.
Well, it's not over yet. So I get up, run now, like the way the house was, like we lived in this weird house. My parents, they busted a bunch of walls down on the first floor and made a grocery store. On the second floor, they busted a bunch of other walls down and made one long apartment. It was a 4-flat.
Okay.
It was an apartment, two floor apartment with 4 apartments, right? So they knocked all the walls down, made one thing on one floor and one thing on the second floor. So I ran from the back of the house all the way to the front of the house. My sister was asleep in the room in the middle of the house. I'm running through the house. My sister pops out of her room and is like, what the fuck is going on? And I'm like, nothing. Leave me the fuck alone. Because I'm thinking she's just going to fucking roast me. I don't need it right now. I need mommy. Right?
Yeah.
So
how old were you again?
19.
Okay. All right. So, hey, sometimes when you're 19, you need mommy.
You need mommy, man. Mommy is the only one who can fight the evil ghost. So
that's what mommies do.
That's what they do. Even if they don't do, I'm going to make them do. That's what they're going to do. So I'm running through the house My sister pops out of her room and she's like, "What the fuck is going on?" I'm like, "Nothing. Leave me alone. Don't make fun of me." Right. And so and she's like, "Who's back there?" And I'm like, "Nobody." What? Whatever. And so I run all the way to the front of the house to my parents' room, and I bust into my parents' room, and my dad is already gone. Right.
Uh-huh.
So I go to my mom. "Hey, what the fuck is going on? This just happened. Call the fucking priest, call the Santero, call fucking Ghostbusters. Get somebody here now," right?
La Llorona came for you.
Fucking somebody did. The Kukui, whatever. Don't want them here, you know? And so my mom is like, "What? What the fuck?" You know? And so my sister comes in the room after I told her what happened, you know? And my sister comes in the room and she's like, "Hey, you know, what the hell's going on?" And I'm like, "Nothing." And she's like, "Is dad still here?" I'm like, "No, dad is not here. Dad left a long time ago because dad worked nights." And so, and she's like, "Well, I just saw some like super dark shadow follow you out of the room. I thought it was dad playing a trick on you." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, what?" It's like, "Yeah, there was like a shadow."
What?
I'm like, "How did you see a shadow? There's no lights on." It's like, "I saw a black shadow follow you out of the room."
No. Oh, God.
And that's the story. Like that happened.
Oh, God.
So if it wasn't for my sister, I would just chalk it up to it being a night terror.
No, but no. You unlocked the Chupacabra and La Llorona and all of it.
Nah,
it's all of it. It's all still following you around.
Nah, fuck that shit. Put it back in the box. I unlocked nothing. I put that motherfucker back in the locker, back.
Now you told me she's going to come after me.
It's the fucking.
I live in an old house, dude. There's shadows all over this fucking place.
Yeah, I just did the ring on your ass.
God,
I just made you watch the videotape.
You asshole.
Yeah, dude. So I was just like, yeah, and I saw that thing quite a few times. And there's been times where I saw a red version of it. I saw two little red versions. Eventually I moved out, got my own place, and then I saw a woman in a wedding dress with a little boy.
Oh, God, that is La Llorona.
No, with a little boy, she was in a wedding dress. No, she was like trapped in like the 1930s or something. Like her outfit was like 1930s. You know, like she was wearing like an old wedding dress, and the kid was dressed up in like some shit that you see like Tiny Tim wearing.
The part where your sister saw it is where it's creepy. This is one of the things where you got to ask your sister about it now, and she's going to be like, "Oh yeah, I remember that. You were talking in your sleep about a shadow coming after you, so I thought I'd fuck with you."
Dude,
you've been carrying this around for years, and it's just she was fucking with you.
Dude, you know how much of a fucking relief that would be, bro? Fucking carrying this shit for like fucking 20 years. 25 years thinking that you fucking haunted, and is my sister just fucking with me. You know how awesome that would be? I would love for that to be true right now. It would make me super pissed, but I would be super fucking relieved, man.
I bet you would.
Damn, now
you don't want to be haunted.
Dude, now you make me want to call my sister.
You can't come here. You like, I'm not inviting you. I've invited you up here a couple of times now. You can't come here.
I don't
want you bringing that shit to me.
I'm not a fucking vampire, bro. Like, fuck, you can't uninvite my ass and fucking means that the spooky is not going to come after you. You can't rescind your invitation.
Don't sick your ghoul on me, man.
Yeah. So anyway,
keep your poltergeist to yourself.
So I got one more I would like to talk about.
Yeah, I got one more too.
All right. So why don't you go ahead and shoot?
Mine is a newer podcast. It's been around for maybe 2 or 3 years now. Real short seasons, like they only do maybe 8 or 10 episodes a season. It's called Heavyweight. And it's done by a guy named Jonathan Goldstein, who has been in public radio for years and years. Started with Canadian public radio, And he did a show a long time ago that I used to listen to that I can't remember the name of now, but it would get broadcast on NPR. And he was a producer on This American Life for a while. So he worked with Ira Glass, and you can definitely kind of tell in the style of the show. But the concept of the show is that people submit confrontations that they would like to have to Jonathan, right? They send him, basically it's, they have a problem with somebody else in their life and they don't know how to confront that. And so Jonathan intercedes and, in his words, acts as an interlocutor and basically like steps in and says, I'm going to have this confrontation for you.
Wait, so is this like the Jerry Springer of podcasts? Is that
no?
What this
and that's the thing. It's very much like This American Life in style. You know, it's very narrative, and you can tell it takes him like months to make an episode. You know, but like he interviews these people and gets what their story is and why they want to have this confrontation. You know. And then calls up the person that they want to have the confrontation with and interviews them, and then sort of facilitates the confrontation. He facilitates the point where they confront each other. And it's fascinating.
This sounds awesome.
It's absolutely fascinating. And my favorite episode of it, hold on. Let me look up the name of it, because now, of course, now that I'm talking about it, now that I'm on the spot and I'm talking about it, I can't remember it. But it was in season 2 of it, where he talks about how he was at one time where the problem is his own. He does an episode called Marshall. It's episode 22 of the podcast. And he's interceding on his own behalf.
Okay.
And he's talking about how when he was a film student, they watched a movie called Russian Ark, which is a really large sweeping film that was a one take. The entire movie was done in one take.
Huh.
So it's like a 2-hour movie of where they're going through. It's a Russian film, and it's a 2-hour movie where it legitimately filmed in one take, where they just move the camera through the story, and they're going through this palace and basically going from room to room. And the final scene, they go into this grand ballroom and there's an orchestra playing, and one of the violin performers in the orchestra spikes the camera, right? And spiking the camera as he looks at the camera, it breaks the fourth wall, and it ruins the movie for Jonathan as a film student, right? As a film student, for him, it turned the entire movie from being a masterpiece into being an irretrievably flawed film, you know?
Oh, come on.
And, you know, and there's film students for you, you know?
Yeah, I'm a film student.
But this is like Russian Ark. I've not seen it. But after listening to the episode, I went and I looked into it, and it is legitimately like a well-regarded masterpiece, because, I mean, think about all of the planning that has to go into doing a 2-hour long one shot, you know? Yeah. And for anybody who's listening who doesn't know, a one shot is, you know, most movies they shoot individual scenes, they shoot them multiple times, and then they edit everything together to make a movie. And this movie was just, you get one fucking shot at this.
Yeah.
because we're filming the whole thing in one take. At best, we could maybe be able to, at best, we could do this twice.
Yeah.
At best, we could make everybody sit through this for trying to do it in 2 takes, but they did it in 1 take, 1 shot, the whole thing. So the camera never stops filming. There are no splices. There are no changes. And so you get through the entire movie, and then there, right before the very end, one violinist looks at the camera, and for Jonathan, it blew the whole thing. And so it's a weird episode of this because he's not being the interlocutor on anybody's behalf.
Mm-hmm.
It's on his own behalf. And so the whole episode is about him digging down, finding out who the violinist is, calling the violinist up and interviewing him, and finding out that the guy doesn't even know that he did it. And doesn't feel bad about it because he never knew he did it. And when he's told that he did it, he laughs and he says, "Oh, I guess maybe I did look at the camera. Not a big deal." He doesn't care. And then he gets up, finds and manages to get a hold of the director of the movie, which is impressive in its own right, because I can't remember the director's name, but fundamentally the Russian equivalent of Scorsese.
Okay.
So actually being able to get the guy to call you back and do an interview is pretty impressive.
Uh-huh.
And so he gets an interview with the director, and he kind of warms him up a little bit, talking about, films and how he was a film student. And then he kind of butters him up, talking about how Russian Ark was this wonderful masterpiece. And then he asks him, but what about at the end where Marshall spikes the camera?
Yeah.
And the director was like, "What are you talking about?" and he pushes it. He's like, "Well, there's this one violinist who looks directly into the camera, and it's the first time anything like that has happened throughout the whole movie. And it kind of, do you feel that diminishes the movie?" And the guy's talking to him through a translator. Uh-huh. But you hear he's very good natured. You can hear in his voice he's not upset or anything. And the director's like, "No, it didn't diminish the movie at all. The movie's a masterpiece. I mean, I'm proud of that movie, and I'm always going to be proud of that movie. I'm glad you're a fan, basically.
Yeah, not
offended or anything. Just and considering I never noticed it, and you're the only person who in the 20 or 30 years since I made this movie who has ever brought it up to me, it doesn't strike me as a problem, But he keeps pushing it.
Yeah.
He's trying to make it, he's trying to make this guy see his point of view.
Yeah.
He's trying to he's got this conflict, and he can't, Jonathan has got this conflict in him about this movie, and he simply can't accept that nobody else has this conflict. And he keeps pushing it to the point where the director kind of starts to sound a little bit annoyed.
Yeah.
And has a relatively long exchange with the translator. And then Jonathan's and when he's finished, he's like, Jonathan says, the translator doesn't say anything. And Jonathan's like, "So what did he say? What was that all about?" And the translator thinks about it for a second, and she's like, he's a little bit concerned that you can't let this go. he doesn't understand why you're so invested in it, because it's not your movie, it's his movie. And so the whole episode, the reason it's my favorite episode is a lot of the episodes are actually very touching and very poignant. These are people who actually need to have a confrontation and clear the air and repair their relationship. A lot of the episodes are just funny, but this episode in particular it's so wacky because it's the conflict doesn't exist. It's a conflict that he's invented for himself and blown way out of proportions inside his own mind. And he's the one who can't let it go. And it's not even something that he's involved with.
That's hilarious. He's the guy. It's funny because it's almost like he's the guy who fixes other people's problems, but can't fix his own.
Yeah. Right. Yes, exactly. And I think that plays a key part in every episode.
That's funny because he's got something he's got to solve, but he can't do it for himself.
Right. Yes, exactly. He helps all these other people, but when it comes to solving his own problem, he can't even basically wrap his head around the fact that it's not a problem. You're just being neurotic.
I have a similar problem. It's like me when it comes to building my own website for promoting myself. I'm incapable of making the design that's good enough for my website. I can never. I'm forever working on making the design for my website. I have no problem for doing it for clients. When clients ask me to make a website, bam, it's done. You know. But the moment
that you're trying,
I have to do it for myself, I can't do it.
Right.
I get
because I fell into this before, where I've created websites for myself or websites for, my own product or something.
Yeah.
And it's like you want it to be a masterpiece. For me, it's like you want it to be a masterpiece. And I sit there and would tear it up and start over from scratch. And it's like, it's gotta be perfect. And then finally just get to the point where it's just like, I just need a website and get sick of it and just throw up some garbage,
It's like, it's not the masterpiece. It's worse than you've ever done. And that's your website. And that's how you're going to get clients or sell your product. Oh man. That's funny, man. So he's got like a huge character flaw in himself. So it's almost like a podcast that's like telling stories, but also telling a story about himself, kind of like without wanting to,
Yeah.
It's very interesting. I like that he did that.
But obviously he wants to, otherwise he wouldn't be doing it. But yes, it's like begrudging to a degree.
Yeah. It's funny because nobody's going to agree to that he has a problem when there isn't one. But anyway, so my last recommendation here, or one of my last favorites here, is the Art of Manliness podcast with Brett McKay. Brett McKay, basically the kind of like the way he does his podcast is, he does the short intro, then he gets, and it's usually about a book. Like there's other ones where he gets like an expert in something and he gets the expert to come in and talk about things. But basically, mostly they're books that he's read and he brings in the author to kind of talk about the subject that he's read on. So that's how he prepares. He's already prepared by having read the book. He knows everything about the topic that the person's going to speak on. And then he has his questions, that he probably came up while reading the book, or kind of questions to kind of help clarify what the book is about, So then he's had quite a few people on. One of the most memorable ones was the book on, I'm trying to remember. It was on, I can't remember the book. I read it and I love it and I can't remember the name of the book. Tribe. It's called Tribe. So he had the author of Tribe come in and they talk about the book, but also he talks about his experience in terms of like trying to write the book. And so they don't just give you like a cliff notes of the book. Sure, they kind of do that for you. They kind of summarize the book for you.
Okay. Yeah.
But having the author on for the book, he fills in other holes that you're not going to get from the book. So, like for example, if you want to pick up Tribe, you're going to read Tribe, and then after you read Tribe, you're going to want to listen to this podcast where he has the author of Tribe talk about the book, because then he kind of talks about the subject of the book itself. And he doesn't just kind of reference the book itself, but like in terms of, again, this example here, Tribe, the book is about kind of the way we live now in comparison to how we are kind of made to live. Like we're a tribal species.
Yep.
And not having, and I think our dilemma, or I shouldn't say I think, but the author kind of talks about the possible dilemma that human life currently has, is that we're not built for this kind of single living existence.
That's interesting. I kind of want to read that book now. Because I was just the other day having a conversation with a friend of mine,
Mm-hmm.
kind of around this concept and how, and certainly I am no psychologist or philosopher, I don't know anything from anything, but I feel like as a species, like we are predisposed to seek out kind of cooperative living, seek out cooperative existence, because we know that cooperative existence is better for our survival.
Yes.
If we weren't hard coded to seek out a cooperative living situation, we wouldn't have things like society. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And we have kind of projected on us instead a primary motivator of competition, that we're supposed to compete with each other. I mean, that's ultimately how capitalism works. And I believe in capitalism. I'll be straightforward. I mean, I don't think it's the only way to do things, but I believe it has its merits. But, from things that I've read and just kind of observing humanity and reading about history and how humans came to be and how civilization and society grew, I think it seems to me like we're much more hard-coded to live cooperatively than to live competitively. And so Tribe is the name of the book. I think I might want to read that.
Yes, the name of the book is called Tribe. I just looked it up. The name of the book is Tribe, and it's by Sebastian Junger, Junger. And it's a great little book. It's not a long book either. I really do recommend it, because one of the things I've kind of this book has really kind of influenced kind of the way I think about things these days too. And I believe Joe Rogan also had this guy on his podcast as well. But I feel like The Art of Manliness does a better job of kind of summarizing and kind of talking about the subject of loneliness, right?
Okay.
And again, like I love Rogan. He's another one of those podcasts that I would recommend people. But I mean, I'm sure people are already listening to this guy. It's a great podcast. And to kind of not recognize the influence that he's had on just this kind of media in general would just kind of be silly. I mean, the man has made huge influence, has made a huge influence on this particular medium. Mm-hmm. And just that alone, I think he's made his mark. I don't know if I like every single episode, and I don't know if I like his politics, and I'll kind of leave it at that. But
yeah. I mean, I think we have one of our better policies is to not shit on things.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm going to agree with you there that politics or not, I mean, no, I don't care for every episode, and I certainly don't care for every point of view that he takes. But there is certainly some magic to his podcast.
For sure.
You can't ignore that. He's put together a formula that works.
Yeah. I would credit him and maybe a handful of other people for the fact that podcasts even continue to exist and flourish as they are, doing now.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, going back to Sebastian Junger, however you want to pronounce it. His book on Tribe, like just for example, I don't want to give too much away since you want to read the book, but he's basically kind of illustrates examples of when like people kind of don't flourish in certain environments and absolutely, do better when they are part of something where they actually
Yes.
kind of feel part of the thing. And so like the point I was making about in terms of how it's changed how I kind of behave, I always kind of take my point of view from the fact that, okay, maybe what I'm doing isn't exactly beneficial for me right now, but it could benefit the group.
Yeah.
And if it benefits the group, it will benefit me in the long run.
Right.
Yeah. And so I try my best to kind of always kind of keep that in perspective, because I think I behave a little selfishly sometimes.
And we all do, and of course you're going to do, you can't survive without making decisions that are for your own self-interest. But you can survive by making decisions that are not about competing with other people. You can make decisions that are in your own self-interest that are not also predicated on somebody else having to lose.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think culturally it's something that we've latched onto, especially here in the United States. We have a certain kind of aggressive self-interest at the core of almost everything we do.
Yeah.
Like very aggressive self-interest. And to the point where like we can't even come to the table anymore. We can't, people just are so wound up in, is this good for me? As opposed to, is this good for everybody?
Yeah.
That they lose sight of the fact that if it's good for everybody, it's also good for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't make me rich, even if I don't climb the ladder, even if none of this self-interest, it might make the world better.
Yeah.
And if it makes the world better, guess what? You live in the fucking world, that's good for me.
Other people are a real thing. You have to share the world with other people, whether you like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And so on that basis alone, you can't just live your life being aggressively self-interested. It certainly works for some people. It works out very well for some people. But look around you. Most of the people that live that way are pretty fucking miserable at the end of the day. Not everybody is going to be a millionaire,
Yeah.
No matter how aggressive you are about it. Anyway.
Yeah. And if
I have to read this book.
You're going to like it. It's a short book. You'll probably crush it in like an hour, but it's really eye-opening. I would recommend you read that book and then listen to the podcast. Okay. And this and at least for that episode, but like
it's so weird too. It's just the coincidental nature of it. Like literally just having this conversation with a friend of mine about this very topic without even knowing anything about this book.
Or some people just want to talk, or some people they need you to just be there. Yeah. While they, I don't know, cook an egg. Like,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Or some people just need to talk and they don't need you to make suggestions or try to help solve their problems. They just need to talk to you. They just need to get it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all it is. I don't know.
I agree.
Who would have thought that a discussion of podcasts would have gotten so philosophically deep?
Speaking of philosophy, Martin wants to do a philosophy episode.
Oh, wow. That sounds heavy.
Yeah, I don't know.
Do that. That would take some research.
It's going to take some preparation. I have to talk to him. I haven't had a chance to talk to him. But
talk to him about it. Let's flesh it out.
You see, like I took a class obviously you have to take philosophy in college in order to
Yeah.
graduate. But I also took,
Well, you don't have to,
well, it was one of the electives.
but I did.
Yeah, I took philosophy because I'm a big nerd and I like to think about life, but or the meaning thereof. Anyway, like I took, Plato, whatever, but also like I took Chinese philosophy
Mhm.
and of course, like in high school, there, I was exposed to a few other kind of philosophies, but I would so dig that. I would have to kind of talk to him and see which of the
Yeah,
many.
that would be a real deep, but I'd probably spend a lot of time talking out of my ass.
Well, isn't that basically what philosophers do? I mean,
Fundamentally, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
they talk out of their ass usually in an informed way, but they are just making shit up.
I think so. I mean, why not? I mean, they
And
kind of,
sometimes it fits, sometimes they land.
yeah, like they come up with a point and then they rationalize for it,
Yep.
but
Yep.
there's some more like kind of interesting newer philosophies that I haven't dared touch, like,
Yeah, it's a topic that I'm educated on, but not like highly educated or
yeah,
recently educated.
yeah, I'm not a PhD philosopher, dude. No.
No. You know who would be a fun person to have on that episode? Your brother.
My brother would probably be very kind of like he's working on his PhD for English,
Mm-hmm.
or I don't know exactly what English, like I don't know if it's literature or what, but he's in that area, He is very smart. He's kind of busy. He's got like, I don't know, he's like making a baby or something. I don't know. It's just
Like right now?
like not right now.
Pick
like,
up the phone and call him. Let's interrupt that shit.
Hey, I know you're busy, but no, like, I mean, the baby's made. He's just cooking, so it's just like,
I see.
so the baby's about to pop, like, I don't know, a couple of weeks or something. It's just,
Well, you better get a hold of him soon because once that baby pops, he's not going to have any time for anything.
oh, yeah, he has no idea what he's in for.
He has no idea. No one does. No one. There is no such thing as being prepared.
No, and no matter how much people tell you, like it doesn't matter. Like you have to live it to see how bad it is.
Yeah.
Because dude, like there was a moment where I was falling asleep, like with the baby in my arms, and I was fighting to stay awake, but I couldn't stand no more, and I couldn't keep my eyes open anymore. And the baby almost rolled out of my hand.
Oh no.
As soon as that fear came in, I pulled the baby back to my chest, stood the fuck up, and I didn't sleep after that. Like
right.
I was, because it just scared the shit out of me. And I just walked from room to room in fucking pain until my wife finally kind of took over.
Mm-hmm.
But those first 2 months, month number 2 especially, is fucking hell. It's fucking hell. There is no greater pain or joy to witness in that second month. But if you can find a way to skip it, you will save yourself probably some years. Like you're probably going to live longer.
Yeah. Skip, if you can skip like from like years 2 to 4.
I would.
You could skip those, and then you could skip 12 to 19.
So just like at 10, just keep them for 10, for age 10.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
After that, just give them back.
Yeah.
Just get a nanny. Away. Get them in there. Yeah.
Like I love my boy so much.
Yeah.
I absolutely do. And nothing is ever going to change that. But there have been so many times where it's been like, I understand why boarding schools exist. there have been so many times where it's just like, I don't care how much military school costs. let's talk about it.
I will make a way to pay for this.
Right. Like, and that obviously never happened, but I mean, oh my God. And you're just coming up on it. How old's your oldest?
My oldest is 9.
Oh boy.
And my son,
boy.
and my youngest.
Brace yourself, because like the next 3 years are going to be great, because they're like little people now. They're little people, and they can be temperamental, but it's manageable. And soon they're going to be not so little people and not so manageable. Oh boy. And there's going to be just the constant test. It's constant, dude. It's constant. The constant test of the boundaries, the constant test of what they can and cannot get away with.
Yeah.
The screaming matches. And not you screaming, getting screamed at.
Yeah.
Dude, it's coming. And you got 2 of them. I only had the one. You got 2 of them, and one of them's a girl.
My daughter and my son, they're like, I have nothing but fond memories, like, of her being a baby, growing up. I look at these pictures and it's like amazing. Like, I kind of understand why old ladies want to touch the bellies and smell the babies, because it's a kind of almost a way to kind of time travel.
Recapture
some
of that nostalgia, that sentiment.
Yeah. And so when I look at pictures of them when they were little, I remember how awesome they were when they're little. And they're even awesome now, because now my son, he's no longer just a little dude eating meat, right? Now he's a bigger little dude.
And he has a personality. He has a personality. Right now they're at the age where they have their own personalities, and they're really, like I said, they're becoming their own little people. And it's so fun. Those years are so much fun. And then it's all going to come to an abrupt stop.
I know. You laugh. You laugh.
I laugh because
I'm a villain. But
I'm going through it right now, and have been for the past several years. But and then they're going to start dating. And you gotta like talk and make nice with whoever the other parents are, and then they break up and become mortal enemies with those people. And I mean, just think about it. You were a teenager, and then you really start thinking about going out to buy a shotgun, just like it's coming.
I'm trying my best to kind of prepare myself.
Oh, there's no preparation.
And the kids for this, because it's coming, right?
There's no it's just like going into having a baby. Yeah. There's no preparation for it. Well, there's no amount of preparation will make you ready.
I've been teaching my daughter jiu-jitsu and teaching her kickboxing and boxing. We've been working on stick fighting. So I think one of the things too that goes along with the martial arts classes, unfortunately can't happen right now, but these classes are predominantly boys, right? So what I'm hoping that will happen in the process is that she gets used to being around boys. She realizes what boys can be like at all different times, and realizing that, maybe at one point she's going to like a boy, and she's going to know that boy can be an asshole too,
Yeah.
And that she's going to I'm hoping that she kind of already realizes what boys will be like. And that, so, maybe she doesn't get her feelings hurt so much, and maybe she doesn't make mistakes and stuff. That's the hope. But also, like, God forbid, something bad happens, she knows how to defend herself, but also how to deal with kind of challenges, right? But like, my son is already, it's funny, my son is really smart, like physically. My daughter is too. They're both really gifted in their own ways. But my son has been doing some really kind of today I taught him how to break an armbar. Like
Mhm.
there's a way of defending an armbar, right? And I taught him a new way of how to break open the armbar. And I also today we drilled how to pass the guard, like how to get around the legs and get to a position of dominance, etc. So we drilled that stuff today, and then we did sparring later. And lo and behold, the little fucker did everything we practiced.
Mm.
And not only did he do everything we practiced, but he strung it together and then pulled out the arm bar. He got to the arm bar and broke the arm off. And I'm like, this kid is going to be a fucking monster. Sometimes I worry about him, but then there's moments like that where I'm like, oh, if he's interested, he's going to be fine. And he's really surprised me lately with the jiu-jitsu and shit like that. Is just like, wow. Now, my daughter is also pretty good, but I haven't seen her pick up stuff like he does. She's got her own little tricks. He like, I just showed him, we only drilled that stuff a few times. And today was the first time he saw some of the stuff we did today. And he did that today on the mat. And I was like, what the fuck?
Nice.
You know? So it's one part, he's a little kid, you know, the other part, you know, cause I mean, they're sponges.
Yeah.
And then the other part might be like, you know, he might be kind of, you know, gifted in certain ways. So we'll see.
Yeah, he might be, you know, good that you're, you know, learning this now.
Yeah.
So that when he's 16 and you guys rumble for real, you won't be surprised when you lose.
Yeah, when he kicks my ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to have to start playing basketball or something.
Yeah.
All right. No more sparring. We're just going to play basketball from now on.
All right, dude.
All right, brother.
So,
well,
we've been going for a long time.
Yeah. 3 hours. Look at that. Maybe we should start capping these off.
Maybe.
I don't know. I didn't even realize we were speaking 3 hours.
Yeah.
I knew we were going long, but I didn't know we're on 3 hours. Holy shit.
But on that note, the list of hot boxing, the Adventure Zone, Spooked, Dust, Geek History Lessons, The Dollop, Astonishing Legends, Heavyweight, and The Art of Manliness.
And lore. Yeah.
Did you talk about lore?
Aaron Mankey, yeah. Did I not talk about lore?
I don't think you talked about lore, but I don't have another 45 minutes in me.
No, let's not do that. Yeah, no, I gotta go put the babies to bed.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Well, thanks so much, man.
Yeah. It's been good.
Yeah. I hope you get to read that book. I'm going to read Recursion, and I'll let you know what I think about it. It's on my desk. I got to read it. But anyway, man, thanks for coming on, brother.
Yeah. Good talk as always. Looking forward to the next one.
For sure. All right. This is Edgar OtraVez. Thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you next time. Bye. Music, Star Cluster, can be found over on Epidemic Sound. Well, there's another one for you. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I always enjoy the company of Not-My-Cousin Dan. He's a great man, really smart guy. Always makes me laugh. I hope he has the same effect on you. If you're interested in any of the things or podcasts that we talked about, you'll be able to find all you need in the description. As always, you know the deal. Like, subscribe, comment, leave a message, send us hate mail, send us love mail, send us whatever mail through our social media channel on Instagram, which is The Flow Roll, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to get yourself a nifty cup or throw pillow with a logo on it through our store at shop.theflowrollpodcast.com. Thanks so much. We'll catch you next time. Bye.